Hi.
The beginning is so awkward.
I bet. I just saw you there. You're like, what do we do now?
Just sit here and act like it's not so awkward. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to prop my phone up on something. It might fall.
Go
So
ahead.
to anyone watching, heads up. Because it was loud earlier.
We've never met. Hi, I'm Aiden. This is
Hi,
us
Jessica.
formally meeting right now.
So crazy.
I'm so excited to be interviewing you today.
Thank you.
I would say it's more of just a conversation. So let's just pretend that we're just talking over some tea.
Wait.
The first question I have for you
I have water.
is actually, okay, good, there we go. Is actually when I asked Justin, because especially since we haven't met before, I'm actually curious. How would you describe yourself just in 3 words? If you can. It's a little bit of an on-the-spot question, I know.
Oh,
3 good words.
I think I'm like, I would say, okay, I don't want to sound conceited when I say these, 'cause I'm genuinely like,
I know,
sure.
and then you look, yeah, I get it.
Okay, social, I think I'm a nice person, I'm pretty sure,
Yes.
and smart.
Nice. That's very nice. I know I hate those kinds of questions myself because it's like, I don't want to sound like I'm full of myself, but
Yeah.
can I say that I'm nice? Yeah. No, those were good. Social.
Mhm.
You said social. Oh my
Social,
God, why
nice,
am I
and
forgetting?
smart.
Yes. That's very good.
Okay.
I like that. And what were your favorite TV shows and movies growing up? I think that's a good question to ask all people who are somewhat involved in any kind of project like this.
Well, obviously, okay, so this one's an automatic, like, my favorite TV show of all time is Friends. I
Okay,
love that show
okay.
so much.
That's a good
And
one.
Mean Girls is probably my favorite movie.
Okay, that's a really good one. I visited the house the other day that they shot, like Regina George's house, because it's in
No.
Toronto and I'm in Toronto. So I had
So
never been
jealous.
before, and we
No.
drove we drove by it. It was beautiful. Yeah, but I know you are from Houston, right?
Yes, I am from Houston.
Nice. That's so nice. Another question I like to ask, actually kind of related to where you grew up. I asked Justin this, but I'm curious if you feel like the way that you grew up, depending on location, community, your family, anything like that, kind of shaped you into, well, it obviously did. All of our pasts shape us into who we are now, but I'm wondering if it shaped you in any way, like specifically as someone who is an actor, if it shaped your lens in that way. If there's any specific, maybe the place you grew up, the community you grew up in, the way you grew up, do you feel like that has kind of influenced you in the way that you're going now, your path?
So, if anything, it pushed me away from it because there are like no actors or singers or anyone. There's none of that in my family. And a majority of my friends aren't involved in the arts. I mean, I could say that there are quite a few. Like, I have friends who've been in, like, band or choir, like my sister was, but none of them were theater. And so I would say it's the opposite. But I also grew up watching movies my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be something that contributed to it. So
Totally.
my
Yeah, I
parents would
like
always
that.
have the movie on.
Right. I like that you say that it actually did the opposite of influencing you towards being something like an actor. I myself have struggled with that my entire life. It's like it's something I've always wanted to do, but something I've never been kind of, my parents are wonderful, obviously, but in the broader community, something I've never really been like shown how to do or really encouraged to do. So I totally understand how that feels. And I think that's a really good answer for what we're going to get into. Do you remember one of the first experiences that you actually remember wanting to act or to be involved in film or TV in any kind of way?
I would have to say that started in high school because that's when I started taking theater because you had to take an arts credit. And I thought I didn't want to do choir because my sister was there. Like that's how my mind works. I did not want to be where she was.
That's
I love
funny.
my sister, but I was like, no.
I get it.
Yeah. And so I got into theater and I was like, I kind of like this. And then I got really into it. And now I want to make a career out of it.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. And do you remember kind of when you started actually thinking about it as a career and not just something you kind of liked?
Maybe like halfway through high school. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah, yeah. We have that's the halfway through high school point is I think a big turning point for a lot of people in Canada. We have something called civics and careers that we do in grade 10, and they start to teach you about careers and everything. I even remember once I told, sorry, not to like self-indulge, but
No,
yeah,
fine.
I told the teacher once, oh, I'd like to be like a director and I want to act and stuff. She's like, oh yeah, that'd be a nice hobby. And I was like,
People do it for a living.
so it's totally like I totally understand like your picture where you came from, being someone who grew up in a community where you know you're not growing up in LA where it's like there's child actors everywhere. You know what I mean?
Not even in Austin where there's like a huge acting hub there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How do you think? So we talk a lot on the page about how. About neurodiversity and the importance of a neurodiverse actor playing a neurodiverse character. I think it's been mentioned on the page before. I might be completely wrong, but I'm 99.9% sure it's been mentioned that you playing Sam are someone who has ADHD as Sam has ADHD. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about how, or a lot if you want to, about how being someone who grew up with ADHD, how that's shaped you as a person, not defined you, but how it's shaped how you see the world and how you relate to other people.
Well,
I know that's such a broad question, but
yeah.
the general gist of it.
So I would have to say, like, it made me realize that there's so many people that are so different. I could say that one.
Yeah.
Like I feel super different from everyone I'm around because of it. How we all work differently, we all learn differently, we all act differently, and there could be a myriad of reasons, but I guess ADHD kind of opened me up to that. Kind of realizing that everyone's different, but it's perfectly okay. Like everyone just goes throughout their life in their own way, and
totally. I think in the context of the show as well, that's a really good because there's so many diverse characters in the show, and I think something as well for people who have struggled with being neurodiverse or different from the average brain is empathy. That I think that's a huge positive thing. I wish everyone had such a capacity for empathy, but I think that's a really common thing that you find with people who are neurodiverse in the broad way, right? Like myself, I have OCD, you have ADHD, but I think it makes you more empathetic to everyone else, knowing that we always have something going on, right?
Yes, of course.
Now, a little bit about the actual logistics of the show. How did you come upon the project?
So I'm on Backstage, which for those of you who don't know is it is an app or a website where you can find casting calls, and it could be for little things, it could be for student films like this, it can be for that, or I saw there's a Netflix audition which I did submit and got denied like twice. But it's okay. It happens though.
Euphoria too.
I saw that for Euphoria, and oh my god, I clicked that button the second I saw it. But
it's so cool though to see it.
Yeah, no. So like, there's a character next season. I know their name. I know what they do, but no one else does because I saw the casting call and they didn't.
You were backstage.
Yes. So that's where I found this, and I remember clicking on it and going, "So interesting. Whoa."
Totally. Yeah. I love Backstage. It's such a resource, especially now, right? Where you can't really go out to a bunch of different auditions and go around everywhere, right?
Like this is filming. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So like this is filming in New York, and so they're looking around New York, but I'm over here in Texas, like way far away. But because of Backstage, I could reach them.
Exactly. It's so cool that way too. I'm in Canada. Like who would have thought? I'm wondering if there's anything that kind of drew you. You said you saw it and you were like, wow, this is really interesting. Is there anything in specific that drew you to the project? I mean, we've already covered that you're similar to Sam, but I'm wondering if you can speak more to that, how you were kind of drawn to it, if there's any specifics.
Because they were casting actual actual actors with ADHD and autism.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
Yeah.
never seen that.
Right.
They weren't
Right.
just casting an actor who could pretend. They wanted somebody who had it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
to portray the truest version of that character.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like that. And it's funny that you say that it's something you've never seen. And you'd think that we would all see it a little more nowadays, at least, especially when the conversation in the general media is so common. You'd think that it's something you'd kind of see a little more often, but it's definitely not.
Yeah, no.
Now, did you feel like you saw a little bit of yourself in her at first, or was it kind of something you came to later? I mean, obviously you were similar again in the way you had ADHD, but did you see anything else that reflected you as a person?
So I remember when I auditioned for this, the very first thing I said in my audition, because you're supposed to slate. So the first thing I said was, the question is, why did you audition? Or why do you want to audition or be considered? I said, I am Sam. I didn't say anything else. I said, that's me. Like, I read the character description. I said, there's not much, but there's enough where I can see, yes, like there's so many check marks, how she has to go to different classrooms to take tests sometimes, like where she has to stay behind. And it's embarrassing because everyone's leaving or everyone's done and you're just sitting there still working. You're like, why is it taking me this long? Like, what's going on? And so she gets embarrassed by that. And I'm like, yeah, I could name a bunch of times in high school where I was humiliated, not by people, but myself.
Yeah.
Where I was just embarrassed to still be sitting there flipping through the test, taking it. And so, and then there were other things like just going through it. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Hi.
Just like random little details too, eh? That's so funny. And I think that's so, I mean, I don't want to sound like, I don't know if convoluted is the right word, but it's like beautiful in a way that you're just like, I am Sam, that's me.
Yeah.
And again, we're speaking about like the whole backstage thing. It's just such a testament to the possibilities now with platforms like that too, right? Because Justin could have searched in New York and maybe found an actor with ADHD, but not much else in common. But he found you all the way in Texas, who you just feel like you embody her so much.
Where's backstage? They need to be recording this, put this in their next advertisement.
This
like,
is like
come
an
on.
advertisement.
This is perfect for them.
Exactly. Speaking about auditions, though, we are all by now well versed in the intensely awkward Zoom audition, even like live, anything virtual and live is like not fun a lot of the time. So I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit if that was your experience during your own audition, if it was a little rocky. I'm wondering if you could take us through what happened.
So I auditioned normally, which is basically you read the lines, someone reads the other lines, and that's just, except I didn't have someone to read the lines with. So I just read my lines and reacted to what I was reading, which was horrible. And I'm never doing that again. But I just remember him saying, okay, you need to find someone to read those lines to you, or we could do a Zoom call. And I was like, let's just do a Zoom call. And so 2 hours go by and we're done with the Zoom audition because we talked for like, I'm not kidding, we talked for like 45 minutes before we even started.
Well, that's a good sign.
He wanted to get to know, Justin, the writer, wanted to get to know me. And so, which was great. It was perfect. And so, but I was just like, this is so weird. And then it's like how we talk on here and we're like trying to not cut each other off because of course not. It was like that.
It's so awkward.
I was so nervous. Like we just did. But
yeah, and then there's like the delay too, and then you're like trying to formulate ideas and it's just not working. That's hilarious. So it was definitely like a memorable introduction.
Oh yeah, especially when you have to get reactions and it comes like 3 seconds later and you're like, I'm reacting.
Exactly. That's hilarious.
Nothing's happening.
It's also like people talk about the concept of like flowing when you're acting, right? And you're well, it's not even a concept. That's just how humans behave. Like you
Yeah.
flow in your emotions. So when you're in an audition and maybe you're not even fully into the character yet, and or how you're gonna play it, and you don't really know, and it's already rocky that way. And then you, as you mentioned, you're waiting for the response, and you're like, I don't really know, like sadness on pause. Like, what do I do?
Yeah. Especially when connection messes up or sound or the lighting is weird or there's just so many things that could go wrong in a Zoom audition, but
So many. That's
I don't
hilarious.
know.
I love that you had a memorable introduction at least.
We did that twice. It was
That's like, I can't believe you. I can believe it, obviously, because I'm sure everyone does it. But the fact that you were reading it and then reacting, and then reading it and then reacting. I mean,
like,
that's so. I get it.
it was like we got to get in the car. Okay, let's go. I was like, oh God.
And you're like, you were playing. That's hilarious.
It was 3 people in that scene, so I'm just like,
You were him.
imaginary. Let's just go with it.
A one-woman show for sure.
What do you think this is? Come on. No, I'm kidding.
I'm wondering if there's anything kind of at first, like maybe it was as soon as just when you got the script in the first place, or when you actually got the role. If there was something that, as we mentioned, you're so much like Sam. You are Sam. If there was something that wasn't necessarily on the page, but you really felt that where you connected, or you really felt that you could kind of bring to it, but that wasn't already on the page.
So when I got it, a little before, sometime in that time period, Justin sent me a list of movies and TV shows that Sam likes, so I could get to know the character better.
Yes.
I think that might be it, because I was just going through this list and I went, oh, I like this, and I like this, and I like this, and I like this, and I'm like, we have so much in common here. What is this? like she likes
That's
Marvel,
so cool.
and I like Marvel, and the list goes on, and I'm like, whoa.
That's crazy. It's like it's almost another person. That's a really good writing technique too, is to find writing and acting, just a good technique in general, to find things that aren't on the page to bring into it, right? So like her favorite music and her favorite movies.
Yeah.
So I think that's so interesting. It's not written in the script that, oh, she likes Marvel and, oh, I like Marvel. It's just another thing that you kind of have in common. That's really cool. When you did audition, was there anything that you really felt like, I need to play this, or because of a specific, because of something specific to you, you felt I need to play this, besides the fact that you are so similar in terms of traits and things you like and stuff like that? Is there something that you really felt like, I can bring this and I need to be this person?
I think that we were just so similar. I think that that's it.
Yeah. When you can't ignore it, right? I guess.
No.
Yeah.
It was like I was drawn.
Right.
And so I was like, no, like this has to be played by me. Like,
right. Yeah.
I don't know the rest of the world, but who else could play this part better?
Right. And you would hate to see someone else play it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know a little bit about the process, just in terms of talking about it to Justin and things, and being on the Instagram page. I'm just wondering how you found collaborating with Justin a little bit, whether it's in the writing process or how you're actually playing something. How has that been, and how has so 2 questions kind of. How has it been in general? Like how's it been maybe creatively fulfilling for you? And 2, how has it been virtually?
I'd say for the first one, it would probably be like
You're just...
You still hear me right?
Oh, there we go. I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, my mom was calling me.
That's okay.
I'll have to get back to her, which is fine. I will say though, I had it. I so had it. Okay, so I remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
He would, I don't know if this answers the first question or the second one, but I know he would reach out to me because he agreed that I was very similar. And so he'd reach out to me and say, hey, do me a favor, send me a video of you saying this line or doing this scene, and let's just see where this goes. I want to make sure that that it matches you. And so I was like kind of turning into this character, and I'm like, it brought me in. That's definitely for sure.
Yeah.
I think that was your question. So much just happened in 10
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah. And how has the actual process been of collaborating? Is it kind of sporadic? Do you guys like meet with each other?
Oh, okay. It's been pretty sporadic.
Yeah.
Whenever we do meet, it always lasts an hour and a half or more because we just get off on literally 100 different things.
Right.
But it does get done, and we just get to work together and talk it out and see what fits, what doesn't.
Yeah.
I remember he was looking for cinematographers, and we had a conversation about that one, and just all of that.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that you can do that at all, right? Because I feel like usually in a lot of things you're just handed a character and it's like, this is it, and then you develop it in your own way, but it's not often in the actual context of the story. The story doesn't really change with you kind of adapt to the story. So I think it's really interesting, even just an audience knowing that. If I knew that the actor helped write certain things, I would be so much more intrigued, because it's really like a full formulation of a character from two different brains or multiple brains. Yeah, so I think that's a really cool aspect of the project and how it's developing too. Now, I'm wondering if as well you've had the chance to collaborate with other actors in terms of just even just talking with them briefly over Zoom.
Yeah. Yes, I remember we did a ton of chemistry tests where we would try. So I met the girl who would play my friend, and I met the girl who would play this like mean girl who was like a character arc in the first episode. And I also met the guy who was possibly playing Jack. And so we just had all these different conversations. And so, yes, I did get to meet and work with these actors before going to see them, but
that's really awesome. Yeah, it would be cool to kind of feel out how your character starts to relate to other people, because especially when it's a situation like that where you're not going to rehearsal or anything like that, so you can't like fully express your character in terms of in a group setting. I'm wondering if that helped you discover any new things about Sam, or even how she relates to people. I'm wondering if that changed your view of her a little bit or added anything in talking to those people.
Sorry. We went over a scene where one of the characters is pretty mean to Jack. And so when I got to work with her, it kind of opened up my eyes to Sam's really not happy about what this girl said, but she can't say anything because she's just trying to fit in. And so actually I read the scene and I believed that, but then when I actually started talking with the girl who's playing that part, I actually felt that she just said something super insensitive, but I can't say anything or they're going to boot me and I'm going to sit by myself on the first day of school, and I don't want to do that. So that was kind of something that helped me develop the character, because it's such a real life situation, and I've never experienced something like that, but I have to put myself in those shoes. And so actually getting to talk it out and actually getting to do that really helped.
Yeah, totally. I think it's cool that you mentioned actually feeling it too, because it's one thing to read a line or have a line kind of passively read to you and then react to it, but it's another to actually be in the scene and be able to see this other character relating to your character. It just makes it all that more real. Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Has this project been challenging for you in any way? I mean, I'm sure in certain ways maybe, but I'm wondering if it's been challenging in terms of actually figuring it out due to the fact that you're not actually in person, or if it's been challenging in practical ways, like in balancing other things with your life. In any way, has it been a challenge for you?
So I would say I am a college freshman, and so I am balancing school and this, along with other things. And so it is a lot to juggle, but I do what I can to get things done as fast as possible. I mean, if you ask Justin, he'll be able to tell you that he asked me for something and I got it to him like 2 to 3 days later. It wasn't an immediate turnaround.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just do what you can because I don't want to flunk out of college.
Yes, that's true.
And trying to keep up a social life and then also do all these other things. And it's just like, but I would say like also reading lines, there's a pretty like sensitive, I wouldn't say sensitive, but it's a more of an emotional scene with Sam and her dad. Trying to do that over Zoom, which was a scene that Justin and I worked on, it wasn't too easy, especially because there's no connection when you're talking to somebody on Zoom.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You're talking to a screen and there's a person watching from their screen on their sides. It's not like being in person and being able to talk it out and feel something as
No.
much as you could if you were, in person. And so
Yeah.
I will say that was a little harder. Like I'm supposed to show a lot of emotion. It's not that easy. I'm doing what I can, but like it's still much harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's like you mentioned just it being a person inside of a screen, even though you are live and you are talking to a real human, it's still just like a screen and then a little like head in the screen. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not in your physical reality. It's really just a like
Yeah.
light up screen. It's not in your actual realm of
Yeah.
physicality. I don't know.
Because when you're in the same room as somebody, you can feel like you get a body language, you get like
Yeah,
sense, you get all these things that help you get to where you need to be. But when you're not, I mean, you only see like this part of me. I
right.
mean, so it makes things much more difficult.
Yeah, completely. And it's even, yeah, even the things like body language or like the tension in the air, you can't feel that. You can't see subtle eye movements or
Mm-hmm.
or focused eye contact. You can't even have that, which is such a huge part of acting and storytelling is in the eyes. So
Yes.
it's completely so hard. And I would say you're doing a very good job, it sounds like, as it's virtual. What are you studying in school? Side
Oh,
side conversation.
I am a history major right
Oh,
now.
interesting. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's so cool. And what school do you go to?
I go to Texas Tech.
Oh, nice. Okay, sorry for everyone just watching. I was curious.
No, it's fine.
Now you mentioned in high school you had some experience acting. I'm wondering if, I mean, obviously this experience specifically, again, with the virtual and the people you haven't met before is different for you, but I'm wondering if there's really something that's been surprising to you, whether it be about the storytelling process or about acting in general, as you've gone into this project, if you've really been surprised by something or a few things.
So if you look at my resume, it's very empty.
Yeah.
I haven't done any film
Yeah.
really. I mean, I'm working on things, but not quite yet. And so seeing this like, oh, I didn't know what a DP was until just recently.
Yeah.
And so getting that and having like, oh yeah, we need this camera and this, and then I'm like, what? Because I'm so used to stages. I'm used to
Exactly.
being on a stage and you need props and costumes and
Yeah.
time for quick changes if necessary. I'm not used to yeah, you need to be in front of a camera and you need to not look at it and like this. And like, we even had a conversation about blinking. Like, you can't blink when the camera changes.
Yeah.
So you have to blink like less. And so it was such a weird conversation. I'm like, it's blinking. Like, it's like breathing. What are you
Right.
talking about?
And the subtleties. Yeah.
It's so subtle. And so now I'm watching movies and I'm like, they're not blinking as much. This is so weird. Like I was on the plane one time and I was watching Wonder Woman 1988 or 1984. I knew that. And so I noticed Gal Gadot's just like waiting like 5 seconds and then she blinks. Another 5 seconds and then she blinks. And the camera changes and she's not blinking. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, that
Crazy.
is so weird.
I've never even noticed that. That's crazy. Yeah,
Apparently.
I totally, and I think that speaks again to how I don't know the word for it, but I think it speaks again to how kind of meant for the role you were, being that you're not someone with too much experience, but that first of all, that never really matters if anybody's right for a role.
Yes, of course. Everyone starts with no experience.
Exactly. I've had that experience too. A lot of experience happening. But I feel that because I'm the same way. but it doesn't matter at all. If someone's truly right for a role, they're truly right for a role, and they're the best person to play it, even though they've had not a lot of experience. So I think you're a true testament to that too, and to how much you really felt you could play Sam, and how much it turned out that you were really like her. So I think that's really good. Have you?
I just know. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just know that walking on set for the first time is going to be crazy.
So magical. That'd be so
man.
cool. And something you're picturing in your head too the whole time, like your bedroom and the front hallway. Like that's going to be really, really cool to see, I think.
Yeah.
And something that surprised me, even just learning about the show, is like budgeting, right? It's like how you don't think about that at all. I mean, obviously we know movie budgets, like the budget of Avengers was $1 billion or something like that. But you don't really like contextualize it and until you have something closer to you like this.
You also don't realize how much it costs. Like,
it's crazy. It's quite the industry for sure. Have you received any positive feedback so far about the show? We talk about its importance and the issues it'll address, but I'm wondering if you've had any actual practical feedback
from people who are working on it or people who are going to see it?
Both, maybe.
Okay. I will say not much to add to the people I'm working with other than stuff I've already said, but I have gotten like Instagram DMs and Snapchats from people who are like, thank you for doing this, like this needs to be done. And it's mainly people who are in the autism community or on the spectrum, and they're like, thank you that you're a part of this. I'm so happy I know someone who's a part of this because I've never seen proper representation. I'm like, oh. Like this one girl, she DM'd me on Instagram and I meant to get back to her, but I think the DM got deleted, and she was like, thank you so much for doing this. Like, it's so great to see this. Like, I really appreciate what you're doing. And I'm like, I'm gonna cry. Like,
oh. That's so wonderful. And just to show that it's touched people, even just that there are people that would try to properly represent anybody. Anybody but, what's that word? Anybody, let alone people who have been so improperly represented in the past.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. I think that's wonderful. I'm also wondering if you have had a favorite memory so far, even though, of course, again, you haven't met in person. But if you have a favorite virtual memory, let's say, of working on the show so far.
Probably just long talks with Justin, because we just go off.
Yeah.
So one time we were talking about a scene, and it ended up with, how well can you draw Spider-Man? I was like, oh, okay, let's try this.
Oh, you really drew it too?
Yeah, no, it's a part of the scene. I actually have the drawing, but
really?
Yeah, so I have to draw Spider-Man in a scene, and I'm like, I should catch up with some art classes. That's really intricate.
I feel ya. I can't draw for my life. I could do a movie, maybe. Cannot draw though. I totally get that. That's wonderful though. And it's nice when you kind of creatively connect with someone. We talked about you being involved in the actual creative process of the writing itself. It's really nice when you can creatively connect with someone on that kind of a level. I know how that feels as well. It's like you can't even describe it when you go off in those kinds of tangents with people creatively. It feels like limitless almost, you know what I mean? And it goes on for hours and hours and hours.
We had a conversation. So a part of Sam's character is that instead of saying like cuss words, she'll say like Superman, and then that's the cuss word or something. Right. It's like a superhero. And so at one point in time, we had a plan that I was going to say like, can't remember the name, but it's I think it's an Avenger, not an Avenger, but like a Marvel superhero. And they're like something vegetable mineral man or something. And it was the most ridiculous name I'd ever heard of, but it was a part of it, like, oh, we're including this because this is just hilarious. Like, it has to be a part of this.
That's funny. And yeah, your little like your little memories and conversations kind of seep into the actual story too.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh man.
Now we've talked about it a little bit, and of course it's always mentioned
Animal,
on
vegetable, mineral man.
Animal, vegetable,
Animal, vegetable, mineral man. Yes.
I've never heard that in my life. That's
I have no. I don't know.
awesome. Animal, vegetable, mineral man.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
I'm gonna say that sometime.
If you stubbed your toe, though, it would be kind of hard to get that all out in once rather than the F word or something like that.
Exactly, and it's funnier too.
It is funnier, yeah.
I just stubbed my toe. Oh, animal, vegetable, mineral man.
You could abbreviate it and just say AVM.
Yeah.
That's really great. Now, it's been addressed on the Instagram account, and it's been addressed. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but we talk about this concept of being people, specifically neurodiverse people, being represented correctly, and at that being represented by people who are neurodiverse in the same way. So again, Sam has ADHD, you have ADHD. I'm wondering, because we've seen that concept as well. We talked about it so much on social media lately. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to what that's meant to you as a person. That's the first part of the question. And two, I'm wondering if you can speak about it in the context of the show and how it's impacted the way that you're even thinking about the character.
Mm-hmm. So whenever, I said this a while ago, but whenever I go through a script and I see a line, I'll be reading it and I'll see a line and I will go, I remember one time when this one actress said this in this one time. So I remember, I think for an audition one time I said, "Hi, I'm blank, nice to meet you," which reminded me of Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad. "Harley Quinn, nice to meet you." And I was like, I channel that a little bit if my character allows for it. And so reading through this, trying to find an actress who had played a character with ADHD properly, my mind went blank. I couldn't think of a single person.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of like, why can't I think of anybody? So many people out there have ADHD. Why hasn't this been done like properly? Which brings me to the show. The fact that I'm going to be the person I think of when I do this. And I'm just like, the weirdest feeling ever. But I'm just like, that's the impact it has on me. It's like, why am I the first person to do this in my mind? I mean, it's probably happened, but I can't think of anybody.
Right.
I can't think of a single person.
Maybe.
Sorry?
Nothing like in the mainstream that you can really conjure up.
Nothing. Unless it was incorrect, which I can't even think of an incorrect situation where a girl has played ADHD. So I'm just like unaware, and I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting that you mention it, like with the lines that you attribute, okay, this line reminds me of this performance in this movie by this person. But certain topics that involve someone portraying someone with ADHD, you can't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even think of one example. It's so telling too, right? Of how it's been, and no one has recognized it. And it's funny because it's like half of the world is neurodiverse in some way, and we've never actually seen it properly.
Yes.
How is that possible?
I think a third of the world has ADD.
Wow.
Or something, some huge number where it's like enough people have this. What's going on?
You'd think that enough would kind of start to seep into some story somewhere, right?
Yeah, but then people grab all these incorrect stereotypes and associate it with everybody who has this, and I'm like, that's not right, because there are so many different, I mean, autism is a spectrum, like you'll never know. And so you can't make that stereotype when you don't know.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like the way that it's so stereotyped, autism and every other disorder in the book, it's so stereotyped, but humans are such just the human condition is just built up of diversity, and everyone is diverse. And I see someone in the comments said ADHD is so overlooked in girls.
Hi, Abby.
It's it's really true.
It's very true. Many girls get misdiagnosed.
Exactly. Sorry, I got a notification. Yeah, completely. And it's like that with autism as well, right? Like not many girls get diagnosed properly. And it's so interesting that it's something like that has been gendered, right? It's why.
It's what? Like, that makes no sense.
It's just, and it's interesting to look at now as we see the kind of systemic historical ways that things like ADHD are misrepresented. And then it kind of bakes itself into society, right? Anyways, how do you hope that, as again, we just talked about how you felt impacted by misrepresentation or lack thereof of people with ADHD in the media, how do you feel that your portrayal of Sam, or how do you hope at least that it'll help people just like you?
I just hope that people who don't have ADHD specifically see this and go, that is not what I thought this was. I thought it was this, and this. But she has ADHD. That means I'm wrong. And so I hope that people realize that those stereotypes are just that. They're just stereotypes. They don't match everybody. They match this group. And because they match this group, they match the whole group, which just, in so many situations, stereotypes are just the worst thing ever. And that's the problem. We need to stop the stereotypes. But that's a whole other conversation.
Right. And I think it's interesting that because it's obvious that you want it to help people who you want it to help people like you who didn't have someone to look up to or who couldn't see themselves on the screen. But it's arguably more important, certainly just as important, to have people who don't understand it see it and say, okay, I have been wrong my whole life.
Yes.
This is the first true depiction I'm seeing of this, and to have it actually represented, because people with ADHD know what it's like to have ADHD, but people who are neurotypical and have seen kids have to go to a different room to take a test, it's important for them to have the experience and see it correctly represented so that they can take that and run with it and destroy that kind of a stereotype.
Exactly.
Now we mentioned things being gendered. You not only are portraying someone who has ADHD, which is something that's been really misrepresented, but also a female lead in a show. Something that was a little uncommon, but then kind of has definitely improved, I would say, especially with the emergence of streaming services like Netflix, where we see the opportunity for leads, especially in TV series, really, really grow. There's shows like Girls with Lena Dunham. I don't know if you've seen that show.
I think I've heard of it.
I won't list them. There's lots though, right?
So many.
But it was something for a long time. Women in the media were not portrayed very accurately, especially female leads, right? They've kind of been a bit of a joke or objectified, subjected to just the male gaze, right? That's really overlooked. Female stories told by men, told solely by men, I should say, because since Justin is a man, the writer of the show, but he's had help.
But there's a female cinematographer and a majority of the cast is female, and that's not going to happen.
Just had to address that. Anyways, this is my very long way of asking you a question. I am wondering how you really, if I should say, you plan on doing certain things specifically, or maybe leaving some things out in terms of playing this female. How do you plan on not how, but if you see some things that you want to leave out, stereotypes that you want to leave behind, or things that you want to add?
So I feel like first off, I want to throw this out there. Sam is 14 years old.
Right.
So no one should be thinking that about her. But there are ways, obviously, to prevent those things. And so if I'm reading the script and I notice this could so be taken the wrong way, love Justin. I could turn to him and say, look, this is a problem. We need to fix this right now. Or I see something and it's like kind of a jab at female stereotypes. And I could go, let's jab a little harder. You can't do that. Just the end. Jab harder so more people get the message that this is just not okay.
Yeah.
Especially because my character is so young. What are you doing? Like, no.
Yeah.
I might be 19. She's not. And that's the important part.
Right. Yeah, I like that you mentioned actually just changing things in the script too, because there's certain standards that women especially need to hold themselves to. Definitely in a role as well, you kind of want to protect your character like she's your younger sibling. And the sexualization and at that the unnecessary sexualization of women has had a huge impact on media, and again definitely has gotten better, but we're nowhere near where we need to.
Not even close.
Yeah, so I really like that you mentioned actually just changing things in the script and saying straight up, like, this is not something that needs to be here. I won't do it as the character. I won't. That's not something that fits into how I see this story, or not something that would move towards a good portrayal of a character.
Yeah. I wouldn't say like we have to change this right now, but I would say like let's tweak this because
let's tweak it. Yeah, I agree. Now, sorry, I'm like reading a pathetic little piece of paper on the side. Now, do you think that, back to a little bit about Sam's ADHD, do you think that generally, because I know obviously you've been writing with Justin, the onus kind of falls on an actor or a writer, or maybe both, to portray the character most as who they really are, and not just down to their condition or the thing that makes them neurodiverse? Do you think it lies more on the writer to make sure their personality is fully fleshed out and it's a fully rounded person and not just a shell of a condition like we often see people with autism, people with ADHD be shown as? Do you think that lies within you to make sure that happens, or does it fall on Justin, or does it fall on both of you? Is that something you collaborate to produce?
I think it's both of us, because he has to write it to make sure that it's not stereotypical. What I'm saying is just what the typical response would be, you know. And then I also have to portray Sam as myself. But if I didn't have ADHD, then I would have to portray Sam properly, because I'm not going to just pretend to be jumping off of the walls because I'm sitting right here able to have a conversation. And so it's on both of us, honestly.
Yeah, totally. And I'm wondering if there's anything else that you'd like to add about ADHD portrayed in the media, or just Sam generally having ADHD, and how you think you are going, the things that you are going to do to make sure that it's a really great and accurate portrayal of someone who has ADHD.
I will say for this project, I'm going to have to think back on high school, because, I mean, nothing in college is really, I mean, yes, in college I've had experiences where I've just have not been able to motivate. I blame ADHD and COVID guidelines and all of that for that situation, having to be virtual.
Yes.
And so I'm going to think back on high school, you know, before the whole world went crazy, and just try to think, how did I feel for this situation? Or I remember this scene where she's drawing in class, she's drawing Spider-Man. Yeah. And so, because she can't see in front of her, so she just goes, screw it, I can't. And so I've got to think of situations where I've been like, yeah, I'm just going to draw. I don't feel like.
Right.
Or I don't know if it'll be in the first episode, but I know a lot of times in class, I have just fallen asleep, like no control, just
Yeah.
go to bed. And so I remember having my teacher wake me up quite a few times, going, wake up. And it was so embarrassing because one side effect of ADHD is if you do not get enough sleep, your mind just shuts down for you. There is nothing you can do about it. Even, no coffee will save you. I've tried pulling all-nighters here, and I have fallen asleep in class because of it.
Yeah.
Coffee will drain you. So I could incorporate that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, just different things from my life to put into it would be ideal.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that you mentioned drawing on experience too, because that's how every great story is told, by drawing on real life experience and trying to infuse as much of the actual story as you can with real life, and especially with your own life, given that, again, you are someone who is so similar to Sam and struggles with the same things as Sam does in her ADHD. Yeah, so I really like that. Now, what do you hope that people following the show, just from this point, even just from these early stages, what do you hope that they get from following the show and hopefully seeing it actualized?
Mainly just that stereotypes are just that. They're just stereotypes. And sometimes they can accurately portray a small group, but not everybody.
Yeah.
And so by watching the show, I hope people just get a better look at what actually goes on. Because I know that Sam has internal dialogue. And so I'm really excited for people to go, okay, this is what actually happens. Because yes, ADHD minds move at like 100 miles an hour, but a lot of the time it could slow it to 60. So just that glimpse of correcting false stereotypes, mainly.
Yeah, I like that too. And then getting the little behind the scenes interviews and everything like that too, where people like yourself are actually talking about why it's important. I think it's really cool, especially when one day, hopefully in the near future, the show actually gets to come out and gets to be made. I think it'll be really cool to have these to look back on as well. And the people that are following now can say that they were there from the beginning.
Oh, man.
Is there anything exciting maybe that you can kind of share with us, perhaps, about the show, about where we can see Sam going? Is there any little tidbit that you feel important?
Maybe you were asking the wrong person. I don't know. I only know what happens in this episode. Maybe if it's a future episode, like it's not relevant enough to mention. I mean, yeah. I'm sorry, you gotta ask Justin that.
Do you think people should be excited to see where Sam goes in terms of her actual figuring out the social part of high school? Do you see that? Sorry, that was phrased wrong. Do you see, not just in this episode, but do you see Sam, that side of her life progressing, the actual high school drama side of her life? Do you think people should be excited about that, is what I meant to say?
I think she's going to get herself into a little bit of trouble.
Okay.
She's been so used to the private school life, which, same. I remember going from a private middle school to a public high school, and it was a change. And so...
That's so crazy. Yeah. But you had the same experience.
I told you, I've got so much in common with this character. It's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
But I will say, like, I feel like she's going to get herself into trouble. I feel like she's going to do things she's going to regret. But then, of course, over time, she will find the error of her ways and fix things.
Yes.
But of course, like, probably just getting involved in drama, maybe with, like, boys. I don't know.
As we all do in high school.
Of course, yes.
Petty drama.
Petty drama that you don't even care about in 2 years.
Right. Now, our interview is coming to an end a little bit. I know I have a few questions that were asked for you from the audience as well.
Okay.
But I just want to know, if anything, what do you hope people take away from this project, seeing it be made? Even if they just watch the first episode, what do you hope that people take away from seeing this story? Yes,
of course, that stereotypes are wrong. But then also that, I mean, this is what it's like. I mean, there's no like, I mean, there's a little bit of like difference between the two, but there's, I mean, it's a family. It's a family. It's a comedy. This is a comedy. I feel like I need to stretch that because I talk so much about neurodiversity and it's like a big topic. It's like a heavy topic. No, I wouldn't say heavy, but it's like such a big topic. It's important.
Poignant.
Yes. And it's also a comedy. It's supposed to be funny. And I feel like the target audience, which I'm thinking is going to be like high schoolers, is really going to be able to relate to a lot more than they think they will.
Mm-hmm. That's very nice. I like that you mentioned kind of the high school comedy part about it too. Yeah, because we don't talk about it on the account either, about how it's more of a comedy. It's very, very important stuff, but it's also a comedy. It's also family drama. There's also high school drama. That's what I like most about it too, right? Is that it's a really well-rounded story. It's not just about a girl and her, or a girl being defined by what she is now, her brain works, or her brother being defined in the same way. It's just about their life in general. Yes. Their well-rounded life, their life that includes so much more than just the way their brain works.
Yes, and it's the story of Sam and Jack and their dad, and they just so happen to be a neurodiverse family. It's not a neurodiverse family in high school. It's this family in high school, and they are neurodiverse, and that's it.
Yes, I like that. Now we have just a few questions for you. Somebody asked what's the process of making the show been like? We addressed it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I wanted to acknowledge them.
Just a lot of Zoom calls.
A lot of Zoom calls, I would assume, as well.
Texting and planning and stuff. Yes.
Somebody else asks, who are some of the most influential people in your life who you look to for support?
So that's like there's two different answers for that one. So for the most influential people in my life, other than my friends and family, I would have to say, again, when I look through scripts, I find situations where actors have said this line or something like it. And I've been watching movies my whole life. So I would say that actors have been probably the most influential people in my life because I went through high school, I went through theater. Gonna be honest, I don't know who's on here, I don't know who's watching. I learned basically nothing. Through 4 years of high school theater, minus the year I was in theater tech, I learned basically nothing about acting. And so I learned everything from watching actors on TV. And so I would say they are probably the most influential people in my life.
Totally. I love that answer. And I so relate to you. We have 1 minute and 23 seconds remaining. Let's see. It says, somebody says, it seems that this character will be easy for you to play, but is there any part of this or of playing the character that you will find challenging?
Probably just showing a more emotional side. My close friends will tell you I'm not the most emotionally outgoing person, so probably that. I'm gonna answer quickly. Probably that.
Okay, I like that. And let's do one more. Who are your biggest influences in acting?
My base influences?
Yeah, maybe a specific actor.
Oh geez. I started acting because of Julie Andrews. I could say that.
That's
I love her. I take a lot from Jennifer Lawrence.
Her so much. The best.
I watch Marvel way too much.
Yes.
So I got my sarcasm from Tony Stark. Yeah.
Okay, all great answers. I love that. We have 25 seconds remaining, so I guess that means that we're done.
Okay.
It was such a pleasure.
Yes. Oh my God.
Meeting you, actually. Hopefully someday we get to meet.
I know.
Hopefully maybe when the show is happening. I don't know.
Hey, you're in Toronto. I'm in New York. It's not that far.
Exactly. It was so nice talking to you. And there's 3 seconds left.